So, ready? So I think it's time to get started again. Welcome everyone to this MF CASR launch talk today. It's great to see you all. It really is. Today I have Mikael Mørch with me. He defended his thesis here at MF in May, and now he is an assistant professor in systematic theology at the Dansk Bibel-Institute in Copenhagen. And he's going to talk about it with us about systematic theology as a rationally justified public discourse about God. And you know the drill, most of you at least. It's like 30 minutes presentation and 13 minutes Q&A. If you want to pose a question, you head over to the microphone that is over here. And that is in order to let the people that follow us online hear what you have to say. And then if you are with us online, then please use the chat or the Q&A function. And then I have like a very tiny, small addition to information to tell you. I'm selling my house today, so if this phone like rings, I just have to go because otherwise I'll lose several million kroner. So I can't do that. So the thing is that then Esther will just step in for me. So then you know why I haven't turned off the sound on this phone today. So please, Mikael, it's all yours.
Thank you, Lou. Yeah, it's good to be here, and thank you for the opportunity to present my work. I know that some of you have heard a lot about my work during the last 3-4 years, and some of you have never heard anything about it. And I decided that I have to present this to people who maybe have not that much interest in theology, but are just curious about what is this work I want to present actually about. So I want to give a broad overview and not go into too many details about it. But I think that the issues are almost universal. And I think that there will be different kind of approaches to discuss this. So I give a broad overview, and then you can ask questions and we can have a discussion in the time that we have. So as you heard, the title is quite long. And it's about, actually it has two different sides of the coin. The first is to try to define what is systematic theology. And that is quite a large debate that has been going for a very long time, maybe since theology became a university discipline, but it's still a large debate. And I've tried to give a new approach, or at least update an approach that I have find very convincing. And then I try to test this understanding of systematic theology to common criteria for scientific work that which is of course also a very large debate. What is science? How do we do it? How do we measure it? Is there progress? Can we have common criteria and so on? And I try to discuss that in the second part of the book. So what is systematic theology? What is science? Is it possible to understand my understanding of systematic theology as a scientific discipline? These are the questions. As you probably all know, you have to have some presuppositions to get an academic work going. And I have two presuppositions in my work. I presuppose realism, and that is actually quite a controversial presupposition, but it is my presupposition that we have a reality that is outside the human mind, and even though we can't just describe it like looking in a mirror, I think that our best scientific theories are approximately true as a description of how reality is. So that is the first presupposition. The second is that the aim of science is not just to get sustain better lives or earn more money or developing new technology. It is also an aim to get at truth in somewhat an ultimate sense. And that is also controversial, but that is the second presupposition. So there is a lot of debate that is just, captured in these two phrases, realism and truth. So that you have to have in the back of your head while I present this. Okay, So the first part is, what is systematic theology? And there are many different kinds of systematic theologies in the plural. But I think that one of the models for systematic theology that I find convincing is a model that the Danish theologian Niels Henrik Gregersen has presented in an article. So it's quite a short presentation, and I try to develop that and expand that model. And Gregersen's idea is to see systematic theology as a three-level discipline. So much of what we are doing in systematic theology, which is quite diverse, can be captured in this three different levels. The first level is closely related to sociology of religion, which tries to identify the expressions of faith in a religious setting, but not just in a descriptive way, but try to capture what is the Christian substance of these expressions we have in it, for example, a church setting. Then at the second level, we are at a level where we usually call it dogmatics. We try to develop what is the Christian doctrines, what is the Christian view of life, how can we improve our terminology, how can we contextualize it, how can we use the resources from our traditions and so on. So that is often a constructive approach to what theology is supposed to do in a certain context. And then the third level is more abstract, but it is about the ontology that theology try to defend and expand on. And that is where my work has been mostly focusing. Is there a theistic ontology? What is a theistic ontology, and how can that relate to and discuss with a non-theistic ontology or a naturalistic ontology? So that is also a large debate, but that is where I think that theology have to give some answers. We have to try to develop theories that can sustain a theistic ontology. Okay, so that is the three levels shortly described. But then I have a method that I apply in the second part, which I come to in a minute, and that is the notion of coherence as a tool for testing different theories, how good they are and how good they are in comparison with other theories. Coherence is often related to the study of logic, where coherence is a synonym for consistency. But there are different philosophers who has worked with a more broader notion of coherence, where consistency is only a part of that, and where the idea is to see all the different propositions, all the different data we have about reality. How can we make the most coherent systems from these propositions and data? And there are three criteria here that we are trying to apply to it. The first is consistency. We don't want to have theories that contradict itself, of course, you can say. But then we also want the most comprehensive theories that can integrate the highest number of data and propositions we have about reality and which we find convincing, or at least truth indicating. And then the last criteria for coherence is cohesiveness, which is how fine-grained are the relations between these propositions and data. The more fine-grained we can make the relations, the more likely it is that our theories are true. And the idea is that this kind of coherence is actually applied to all different kinds of sciences, the natural sciences, the social sciences, and also the humanities, where I include theology. Okay, so the idea is to see systematic theology as a three-level discipline with many different approaches to the notion of theology and Christianity, and then try to focusing on the third level of ontology and analyze and discuss the theories in relation to this notion of coherence. So that is the first part of the book. And the second part of the book is to try to discuss if my understanding of systematic theology can meet uncontroversial and common criteria for scientific work. And I have 3 different criteria that I have looked up in maybe 25 books on philosophy of science that is just taken for granted. And the first is testability. We have to be able to test our theories. And the second is falsification. We have to be able to falsify our theories, not just test them, because it is too easy to verify our theories, so we have to be able to falsify them. That is just common to philosophy of science. And then the third, which is maybe more controversial for theology, I try to defend the criteria of intersubjective criticism, because there is a large debate in philosophy of religion whether it is enough to have personal, or we can say first perspective justification of your beliefs. But I try to make an argument for we have to have third person justifications for theological theories, at least at the third level of systematic theology. So I don't want to discuss all these intricate details in these 3 chapters, but my idea is that the notion of coherence makes it possible for theology to both be testable, falsifiable, and meet the criteria of intersubjective criticism. Okay, and then the last 2 chapters actually change the debate a bit, and I will end my presentation shortly on that note. The first is that I discussed the difference between theology and religious study with the focus on normativity, because historically there are many religious studies scholars who say that the difference between theology and religious studies is that religious studies is only descriptive and theology is normative. That distinction has mostly been abandoned today, but I try to describe the difference between 2 different notions of normativity today. Everybody agrees that we are all normative in our approaches to scientific theories, but theology is not only weakly normative in its descriptions, but also strongly normative in suggesting truth theories and truth, you could say truth propositions about the reality we are all living in. So there is still a difference between religious study and theology, which is the difference between a weak and a strong notion of normativity. And then in the last chapter, I discussed whether theology is actually a scientific discipline in itself, because there are many who makes a critique of theology and says that when theology is a scientific discipline, it is because it is either philosophy or a kind of a religious study approach to Christianity. And I say that I think actually theology, at least at the third level, is a distinct research discipline. It is not only philosophy because it is committed to this theistic ontology that is the premise for the third level. And it is not only a religious studies discipline because it is focusing on this notion of truth or strong normativity. Yeah. So I end there while saying that I think that my understanding of systematic theology is actually a scientific discipline because it can meet the most common criteria for scientific work. And it is a distinct discipline that can work with both philosophy and religious studies, but it is a distinct research area that is committed to an theistic ontology and works with the notion of truth in its propositions and theories. Yeah, thank you.
So we have our 13 minutes.